Paul Fenn with another episode of Jeanneau underway.
So the boat I have, Barba, Jeanneau Sunfast 37. It's named after the dog I had as a child, for the dog's loyalty and also for the dog's ability to be satisfied with the simple things in life, such as friends and family and the great outdoors. It spent its first 7 years as a charter vessel in UK. So when I bought the boat, it was quite worn down, and which is to expect. So I've spent the first couple of years just refitting the boat, getting her back to speed. And that's been critical, I think, for doing what I do, so I understand all the systems of the boat. So if something breaks or if I have a failure, I know how to fix it.
Sailor, diver, explorer, and all-around lover of nature, Andreas Heide, like Robert Frost himself, has opted to take the road less traveled. Whether sailing to the pack ice of Svalbard in the high Arctic or freediving with orca whales off Greenland, Andreas Heide is a man who seeks adventure. This past summer, I got the chance to get to know Andreas during our time together sailing from his home in Stavanger, Norway, across the Norwegian Sea to the Faroe Islands. To say this was an epic trip would be a gross understatement.
But we're reefed down a little bit, but the weather forecast is for improving weather, and the wind's lightening up a little bit as we get towards morning. Right now it's a little after midnight, and yeah, so far so good out here.
Well, Paul, my life is pretty much about sailing, going on expeditions. And when I'm not sailing, I'm planning new expeditions. So about a third of my time I'm at sea, and 2/3 I'm on shore, prepping the boat, getting funding, getting crew, and getting everything needed to go out sailing again. So Paul, as you know, this summer's expedition is a 5-week duration, taking us from Norway to Faroe Islands, where we spend 1 week doing content creation. And then we sail onwards to Iceland, where we wish to document bottlenose whales between Faroe Islands and Iceland. It's a poorly documented whale. Once in Iceland, we're gonna recover some scientific gear together with our scientific partner Whalewise. And then we sail back to Faroe Islands and onwards to Norway. So to me, part of the adventure is not only where you go, but also who you bring with you to these places. And it's always try to have a diverse crew, both gender-wise, nationality and expertise-wise. So as a storytelling platform, we typically need someone who's good with a camera. And also from the science perspective, we like to have a scientist on board. And then from a sailing perspective, I like to always have at least one person that can do my job as well as I can, if not better, ideally better, to help with the sailing. Because it's still critical to us to be able to sail that boat properly and to handle the adverse conditions which we experience in the Arctic. So we've had -20 below freezing, the boat covered in ice and snow, sailing in the night, and you need to know what you're doing, and you need to trust the gear, and you need to trust the crew. And many of, to me, the Barba crew, it's like an extended family, And it's we have Tord, for instance, who's been on the boat 8 times now, and he's definitely gonna come back for the years to come. And it's people from all over the world that helps us with the storytelling.
This is my first sea crossing. So we crossed from Stavanger up the west coast over to Shetlands, and now we're in the Faroe Islands.
We had a good crossing, sailing out from Norway in the late hours, experiencing some strong winds initially, but then calm weather and smooth sailing.
So what is it that draws Andreas to such cold and remote locations?
Well, to me, living in Norway, my natural playground is the North Atlantic and the Arctic. And also to me, sailing is about going places where there are no other people. And as such, I've sailed to Greenland. I've also sailed to Iceland on numerous occasions. I've circumnavigated Svalbard twice, going all the way up to the pack ice around the North Pole. And then I've spent 4 winters in Arctic Norway documenting orcas and humpback whales. And in addition, I've done a lot of sailing in coastal waters Norway. And this is probably my 5th time to the Faroe Islands as well. So it's over the years, it's been quite a bit of sailing.
So where did this wanderlust and desire to sail off the beaten path to the remote areas of the North Atlantic come from?
You know, my drive and inspiration for doing what I do, I think it comes from being fortunate enough to have a very active upbringing. My parents always taking me out in nature, out at sea, out in the mountains. And to me it's always, especially with the ocean, it's the curiosity of what's beyond the horizon and underneath the surface, which is why I also enjoy not only sailing but also diving and free diving and interacting with whales and just seeing what's out there. And still, to me, to this day, looking at the ocean, I'm always curious about what's underneath the surface, and I just want to keep exploring. That's basically who I am. And I think it's been inspired also by one of my heroes from when I was a kid, Jacques Cousteau, hence the red wool cap. And I would also like to add Sir David Attenborough, because to us it's not only about sailing for the sake of sailing and for our own amusement, so to say, even though that's also an element, but it's also about wishing to share what we see out there with a greater audience in a nature conservation context. Because it is disturbing to see, you know, nature being on a retreat. When we're up north in the pristine Arctic, the beaches are covered in plastic. So it's a lot of work to be done. But also I like to highlight the success stories of nature conservation. So such as last year we saw 10 blue whales in a day, and they were almost extinct. And same with the orcas we're seeing, they're coming back in greater numbers, showing us that it actually helps to make a change. And I think if we can show this to more people, and especially children, which is why we also have an educational program, that we can make a small dent and help push things in the right direction.
As my time aboard Barba was coming to an end, I was curious to know if Andreas had any grand plans to sail south or take on a circumnavigation.
At the moment, I'm very pleased to spend my time in the North Atlantic and the Arctic, because there's still so much to learn and still so much to do. And what I find when you build up an expertise for this region, you get to do things really well. So working with photographers and storytellers, every time we go out, we're able to deliver at an even higher level. Also, I like this part of the world. There's not so much people, and to me, if I go to an anchorage and there's one other boat there, it's crowded. So I enjoy that side of it. So actually, I'm quite happy where I am. I want to keep doing this, maybe get a slightly bigger boat with time, let's see. But I'm keeping the one I have, rest assured. And then with time, let's see, just keep doing. And it's Jacques Cousteau, that's what I'm aiming for. Remains to be seen how far I get, but it's good to aim high. And then also, maybe in 10, 15 years, it would be great to sail around South America, and the Pacific is also exciting. And I would also love to sail to New York and Boston one of these days. In addition to, well, the Northeast, the Northwest Passage would also be exciting. So lots more sailing to do, but for the time being, it's still focused on the North Atlantic and the Arctic with polar bears, blue whales, walrus, and a lot of excitement to be had.
Well, I certainly enjoyed my time aboard Barba and getting to know Andreas. For the Jeanneau channel, this is Paul Fenn, and I'll see you next time right here on Jeanneau Underway.